Welcome. It's a pleasure to be here with you. We're very excited about this summit and glad you could attend. It's my honor to introduce our first speaker, our keynote speaker, Arshay Cooper, who's now a friend of mine. And Arshay has an amazing story. He grew up on the west side of Chicago. There was a different gang on every block as he walked to school. He saw dead bodies on the streets. He was shot at, drugs constantly, alcohol. His own family became addicted to drugs. His mother left him for months at a time, and he basically raised himself. But the amazing thing is he stayed completely free of gangs. He stayed free of drugs. And in high school, he joined a rowing team. It was the first African-American all-black rowing team in any high school in the country. And they put members of different gangs in the same boat together. And they actually learned how to talk to each other and how to like each other. And they learned that they were more alike than they were different. And this changed all of their lives. They went on to become successful entrepreneurs. After high school, Arshay joined the AmeriCorps, and he taught diversity and inclusion for a while. And then his dream was to become a chef. He attended the culinary section of high school because he was able to eat. That's how he was able to get food and eat. And he had a dream of being a chef, so he put together a really cool little scheme to earn money completely legally to send himself to La Cordon Bleu school in London. And he became an excellent gourmet chef. And then he started working for the WWE, the World Wrestling Association. And then he worked for Warner Brothers, cooking for celebrities and cooking and providing meals for all the movies that were being filmed. And then he went back to his true love of teaching high school kids how to get along and how to be successful and how to set goals. And so he's teaching rowing and setting up rowing schools all across America. And he enjoyed working with the students so much that he felt like his story needed to be told. So he wrote a book that he self-published called Sugar Water. And it was so successful that Macmillan Publishing picked it up, and it's now a bestseller. And then that led to the movie A Most Beautiful Thing, which we actually watched last night. And this movie was, the executive producers are Dwayne Wade and Grant Hill from the NBA. But it tells the story of getting people together and learning to really accept and appreciate others. And Arshay has won the Ben Franklin Award for that book. He's starting to build rowing companies now all over the world. He'll be working in London and Australia and New Zealand. So it's my pleasure to introduce Arshay Cooper.
I'm excited to be in Utah. Thank you, Michael, for the invite. Last night was an absolute blast. And also having a chance to meet some of you yesterday was awesome. It's always good to get together and learn. You know, I always tell young chefs, like, hey, when the knife is dull, sharpen it, and it can cut through anything. And I know there are times that we may feel dull when we're going through our day-to-day, that we may be losing our cutting edge. And it's so important that we come together constantly to sharpen each other, to learn more, right, and strengthen each other. So thank you all for, regardless of what you went through, you're here today. So thank you all for coming and being a part of what's happening on this weekend. So again, thank you all for that. I am just super excited. I have to say, last night was a blast. I've received so many messages from some of the college students last night on LinkedIn and Instagram. And, you know, we was able to watch the film together, and they had such great questions. And it was absolutely a blast. Someone asked me yesterday, said, what's your favorite group to speak in front of? And it's college, I would say number 2. You guys are number 5, no, I'm saying 3. But number 1 is like 6th graders, right? Like, you can go and explain your story. I was in Baltimore. I was telling some of the folks I was in Baltimore last week, and I was talking to 6th graders who grew up in a neighborhood just like I did, never heard of rowing, just like I've never heard of rowing. And I was able to tell my story and talk about the guys in the boat. And they just, I'm telling you, if you have time, give your time and talk to 6th graders. They just have the best questions, and they were just so amazing, so inspiring. And, like a kid said, my team, we started in 1997. And one of the kids said, wow, I'm just in shock. I can't believe that you actually rowed in the 1900s. And I was like, wasn't that long ago, And then I had another kid, he's like, I see that, I get it, that the sport changed your life, but have you seen Titanic? And I was like, you watch Titanic? So, it's always awesome to get in front of a group and speak to people about my story. I'm very transparent on how the sport of rowing absolutely, completely changed my life. And because of that, I have accomplished so much in my life, right? With this documentary produced by Dwayne Wade and Common and Grant Hill, and now it's going to be a scripted TV series on Amazon Studios. Amazon Studios bought the rights, so just a lot of great things. And but for me, when I pull up in my neighborhood, when I roll on my block, I do not want the kids to see me and say, "Oh, that's the chef," or "That's the author," or "That's the rower." I want them to look at me and look at my car and say, that guy, that's the hope for my community. Because those who have been really great leaders, those who I admire, who I've never met, they inspired me in a way that was bigger than their career. Just the way that they act beyond themselves. Like when I think of Harriet Tubman, I don't think about her career as a Union spy, but I think about the freedom that she had brought to so many people that were enslaved. When I think about Gandhi, I don't say, oh, the attorney, but I think about the peace that he had brought to so many villages. Or when I think about MLK, I don't say the educated preacher, but I think about the hope that he had brought to our nation. So when we act beyond ourselves in our daily routine and all that we do to provide for ourselves, if we can act beyond that, that's what brings hope, peace, and love to a nation that we need. That fulfills MLK's vision of a beloved community. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. And, growing up on the west side of Chicago was rough for me. I knew that there were people who didn't look like me who lived better lives, and there was people who lived in Hyde Park that had better lives. My situation was just sucked, right? My grandparents came from the South, and they moved to Chicago because her best friend was hung on a tree. And, they live in a community, and my mom will always say I lost my parents to their trauma. And my mom didn't know how to deal with that. She had no access to see a trauma counselor herself. So she turned to drugs and alcohol. And I had to face that trauma. And I lived on the west side of Chicago and wake up in the morning at times. And like Michael was saying, I've skipped over pools of blood. I've lost friends. I walked through the cloud of rock cocaine. I've ran for my life. I have experienced, me and my friends have experienced what some soldiers have experienced in combat before we were 14 years old. And there was no way for the brain to develop or think about the future. Math was out the window. Reading was out the window. And so I just stayed focused on everything that was happening and learning to survive. And because of that, I had a lot of just hate in my heart as a kid. And I was looking for a way. I was looking for something. And I remember my 8th grade year, first week of school, I wouldn't do work. I wouldn't do anything just because sometimes I was hungry. And my teacher said, and I talked to the kids about this last night, she said, what's the problem? And I said, I don't want to be here. And she said, school's only been in session a week. And I said, who said I'm talking about school? And that's when she started working with me. And, my mother went into recovery. My brother was in gangs. And so I was a loner. And I fought alone. My doubts, my anxiety, my depression, I did everything, handled it all alone. And so I go to this high school. It's the second most violent high school in the city at that time. And one day I walk into the lunchroom and I see this boat. It was beautiful. I have never seen a boat a day in my life. And, I'm like, what is this? What's happening here? And I stopped and I started staring at the boat. And this lady, little young white lady said, hey, you want to join the crew team? And I was like, crew? Like, what is that? You're taught in Chicago, if someone asks you to join a crew, run the other way as fast as you can. And I'm like, what? Like now, so many gangs. Now this little white lady come to my school starting a crew. Like, what's going on here? What's happening? Like, what is this? And she said, let me show you. So behind the TV monitor, they were showing the Olympic Games. And it looked like an opportunity. But because the people on the screen didn't reflect the world I was used to, or no one looked like me, I said no to the opportunity. And I walked away. And, I told my friend, we don't even swim. Like, what is this all about? I was upset. Nobody signed up. Showed up the next day, the boat was still there. And this time, there was a long line of people. And I was like, wow, like everyone's signing up. And it said, hey, you want free Chicago pizza, sign up. So everyone's signing up. Everyone's signing up. And so after, I signed up. After class, I go up to the gym room. And I'm sitting on the floor and I'm looking at everybody. And these guys are from different gangs, from different neighborhoods. And I'm saying, I don't know how this is going to work. But the one thing that caught my attention was this female coach. Because a lot of women in the 90s wasn't really coaching all boys. And I was raised by women. Most of my teachers were women. And I felt like they got me in a way that understood me in a way that men didn't. I was a little sensitive as a kid. But having that representation was just so important to me. Having a woman in leadership, like she would get me. And then I noticed another coach. His name was Victor. I talk about it in my book. He's a black coach. And that meant a lot. That representation in leadership meant a lot for me because maybe that will let me know, my mom's back from recovery, that we will be possibly protected and someone understand a world in this sport that I don't quite understand. And there was Ken, who's this amazing Jewish guy who was the founder of the team, who just spoke with so much passion. When he looked at us, when he looked out in the group, he wasn't speaking to black kids. He was speaking to the human. He said, I wasn't strong enough to take a tackle. I wasn't tall enough to play basketball. And I felt like sports wasn't a way for me. And I was just so insecure about everything that I couldn't find my way. But this sport of rowing have changed my life. He just completely connected with every human. And so the power of diversity in that leadership helped me to make a decision. The fact that it reflected the world that I look at every day on TV is the reason why I made a decision to join this rowing team. And that was very important. And so here I am, ready. And the story talks about how these guys, one guy who grew up in a house where his father was raping his sisters and he couldn't figure out how to quite fight for them. The other story is a guy whose mother was the biggest drug dealer on the west side of Chicago. And the other guy was the son of a Muslim who had to sneak to practice because his dad didn't want him to be in a world where no one looked like him because of his experience in the South. And how we all got together, many of us, to form the first all-black high school rowing team. And not only make an impact in our school and became the solution, but how we grew up to make an impact in the sport and how we got back 20 years later to team up with the Chicago Police Department to race for our city and the impact that we have made in our city. So if you get a chance, please watch the film. And I guarantee you enjoy it. But the lessons I learned from rowing has prepared me for everything that I'm doing today in my life. And the first thing that really helped was the wellness piece, right? I tried out for football. And I know Coach said yesterday football is the ultimate sport. I believe rowing is the ultimate team sport. I tried out for football and it didn't work for me. It triggered the trauma. Like, when coach was like, knock them dead. And I'm like, okay. And someone's trying to hurt me. And now I'm trying to hurt them. And it just didn't work for me. And so I couldn't play football. And then I tried for basketball. And basketball's, my favorite sport, but I wasn't good at it, right? And I would get elbow and they would say I'm garbage and I suck. And I heard those things growing up as a kid from even teachers. And so that didn't work for me. It triggered a trauma. But the fact that this sport was non-combative and non-conflict, it reduced the trauma. That when you're out there in the same survival mode that tells you if you hear a gunshot run, told me in order to get back to the dock safely, you have to pull for each other. And to pull for each other, you have to shut up, you have to listen, you have to sit tall, you have to breathe, and you have to meditate with every stroke. And we began to download that serenity The sport began to calm the storms that we went through every day. We began to develop that magical rhythm, and we became a team. And that was the first order of business. And I knew I wanted to be a leader. I knew I wanted to be a captain of this team, but I had to work on myself, mind, body, and soul. And then when I was able to accomplish that, I was able to be the first captain of this all-black high school rowing team. And it completely, 100% changed my life. And not only, the good thing about it, it wasn't just a rowing team. Every Thursday, my whole high school year, that we had to take entrepreneurship classes. It was rowing and youth entrepreneurship. Right away when Ken came to our school, they was like, oh, tutoring and rowing. He was like, these kids don't need tutoring, right? They already born entrepreneurs, right? How do we activate that entrepreneurial mindset? And so we started sitting in classes and we started learning how to network and talk to people and work with people and critically think about how to not only survive, but to support ourselves and our families as high school students, right? And then we became successful. But the lessons I learned in the sport I want to talk to you about today, number one, as a captain, I had to figure out how to find alignment with all these people who think so differently, who thought so differently. And the way that our team, this was our strong four, but the team had 25 young people. And what the coach looked for, number one, was who was available. Everyone was available. And the second thing he looked for was who was willing, because it was 6 days of work, a lot of work. Who was willing? And then who was able to do the work? And lastly, who got things done? And that was the group that he worked with. And that was the group that was able to accomplish a lot of different things. And so here's the lessons in order I want to begin to talk to you about and learn. Number one, the first lesson I learned is that I can't do the work of 8, but I need 8 people to do the work, and we'll get there much faster. Then I realized that I couldn't do the work of 4. I need a 4 to do the work, and we'll get there much faster. How do we get everyone moving in the same direction as fast and as efficient as we can? And I had to get to know every individual on the team. I judged everyone right away. I couldn't understand why people just didn't get it. Like they didn't have the same work ethic that I had. That I just didn't get it. But I had to start conversations with everyone. As you saw, those who watched the film, every morning I showed up at every individual's house and I got them out of bed very early, way before school, took them out of bed, and then we walked to the next teammate's house every single day. And I began to ask them questions like, what keeps you up at night? What keeps you going? Right? Developing a relationship, that trust that Coach talked about yesterday, that was so important, that you show up for those who are pulling for you. And when you begin to develop that kind of relationship, that's when everyone started moving in the same direction. And then that was the start of a brand new team. And that was the 90s. So Michael Jordan was like, the man. And I know we had a couple battles with the Jazz in the 90s, but I was rowing around that time. And what I loved about MJ, and when you hear from his teammates, like, even today, everyone knows who on their team, no matter if it's sports or not, who wants it a little bit more than everyone else. Everyone knows who that person is, who get up early. They just want it more than everyone else. And I was that kid, and MJ was that man, but he wasn't satisfied with just being that person. For me, it was like, okay, if I'm that guy, but how do I get everybody else to want it just as much as I do? And then that's when you begin to win. And so I started working with them individually as a high school kid. And they all started to want it a little bit more than I did. And then we started seeing the success. The next thing I had to realize is that I had to give what hurts. Now, I had an issue touching my toes in high school. Like I was able to do everything, but I couldn't touch my toes. And so the coach was like, come on, man, you have to give what hurts. To get the results that you want, you have to give what hurts. And then that reminded me as a kid when we go to our friend's house and, his mom would say, we didn't have much, but they had a lot. And his mom would say, give Arshay your favorite toy. And he didn't want to give it. But when he gave it to me, he saw the results on my face. That when you give what hurts, you get the results that you want to receive, that you want to get, right? And so we had to learn to give our time and our talent. And not only that, these days, our treasure. To get what we want to get out of our employees, out of our company, out of our people, out of our city, we have to give what hurts. I didn't watch no TV shows anymore. I couldn't go hang out at the mall. Like, I sacrificed all that to be with my teammates. I had to give what hurts to get the results that I wanted to get. When I was in the boat, I gave it everything. I was bleeding. My back was hurting. But to get the results that I want to see, you have to give what hurts. Not just give, but give what hurts, right? And that was super important. That was another lesson that was so important to my team and to our companies, that if we show up and we're working with our employees, when we give what hurts, that extra time, we sacrifice in our favorite TV shows and even sometimes a little hangout time to spend time with them and to sharpen them, we will see the results that we want to see. And I think one of the most important lessons along the way as we begin to be great workers is to develop a strong work ethic. One of my favorite stories is told by Jay Williams. And Jay Williams said that he went to the gym. They was playing the Lakers. And he went to the gym. And Kobe was there at 5 a.m. in the morning. But Kobe was already in the big sweat. He was sweating. And Jay Williams said, I couldn't figure out how long this guy been here. And and for an hour and a half, Jay Williams said, I'm working out. And Kobe is still working out. And so Jay Williams said, all right, I'm going to go take a shower. 30 minutes later, Kobe is still working out. And so Jay Williams said, I'm going to sit here and watch this and see how long this guy's going to train. He sat there for 30 minutes, and Jay Williams said, you know what, I had enough. And so he left. He came back at 5 o'clock, and Kobe dropped 40 points that game. And he said, after the game, he asked Kobe, he said, man, why? Like, seriously, why you have to work out that hard? Like, you're Kobe. And Kobe said, I saw you walked in here. And I wanted to prove to you that no matter how hard you try, no matter how hard you practice, that you would never outwork me. And that was the work ethic that I had as a kid. That I knew one thing about the rowing machine is that when you sit on a rowing machine, when you work out in the sport of rowing, the more you beat on your craft, the better you will be. And there were people that were stronger than me, more talented than me, that were taller than me, that was more gifted. But the one thing I was able to control was my work ethic. That when you're out hanging out, I'm working, right? When people were at the mall at school, I was working. I was an A student. I became an A student. I became the person in Chicago who had the best early scores. I won every indoor competition in my city that I ever had because I was willing to put in the work. And that's the one thing that we can control with our employees and with ourselves is that we have to begin to outwork others. That's the one thing we can control is to show up and work. And that is why I'm at today. That's how I got my work ethic. And one of the best stories that got me to where I'm at now is that when I graduated high school and I became this top rower, I knew that I wanted to be a chef. I knew that I wanted to go to Le Cordon Bleu, England. I just didn't know how to pay for it. And so I sat with my mentors and I began to make a plan and I wrote down my plan. And I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start off at Le Cordon Bleu, Chicago. And I became the chef at this school. Then I asked Ken, I said, what is the most wealthiest neighborhoods in the city of Chicago? And he went through the wealthy neighborhoods and I said, okay, I'm gonna go in Little Italy. That's where the NBA players live. That's where some of the aldermen, the leadership in the city was at, the lawyers, the doctors. And so I started working at Starbucks every morning from 5 to 9. Every single day. And I started developing relationships with people in the community. How you doing? What's your daughter's name? How's everything going? Good game last night. What do you need? You know what? This coffee is on me. Start building relationships. And then I went back to Ken and I said, what's the best restaurant in the city of Chicago? And he says, Blackbird. It's a French restaurant. They just won the James Beard Award. Chef Paul Kahn is everywhere. I was like, okay. So I went there and I asked for Chef Paul Kahn. I'm this little kid. And I said, hey, can I work for free on the weekends? He said, what? I was like, yeah, I don't care. I just want to cut carrots and mushrooms. I want to learn. Can I work for free? He was like, absolutely. You can work for free. And so here I am every morning working at Starbucks from 5 to 9, going to school from 10 to 4, right? And I'm studying, I'm doing my homework, and on the weekends, I'm at the restaurant every day. And I'm developing this work ethic. And then I started meeting people at school. I was like, yeah, I need a job. I was like, oh, man, yeah, I got to find a way to get a job. I will employ you. I will help you. And it's like, you got a company? I was like, no, but I will have a company. So I started making these business cards, catering to families, to couples. And so I made all these cards, and then I started putting them in the sleeve of everyone's Starbucks cup. Cater to families, cater to couples. And they all knew me and they loved me. And I gave them coffee for free at times. So they said, I'm going to support you. And they said, wait a minute, but you know how to cook? I was like, yeah, I go to Le Cordon Bleu. Oh, you're a student. But no, I also work at Blackbird. You work at Blackbird? Yeah, I work at Blackbird. I didn't tell them I was cutting carrots and mushrooms every day, but I work at Blackbird. And it was like, we're going with you. And so I go back and I go to these students and these friends in culinary school, and I hire all these kids, right? And, you know, it was the 90s, and they was getting paid $10 an hour. They were very happy with that. And I was making so much money, but I was working, and I was building relationships with people, and I was helping people along the way. And then 6 months later, I have made enough money to support my year and a half of going to Le Cordon Bleu, England. Because of the power of entrepreneurship, because what I've learned from my mentors, because I was able to build relationships with people and ask them questions about themselves and spend time with them and take my lunch breaks with them. Like, they cared about me. I wasn't, again, the most talented chef, right? The best, but I had a drive and a work ethic and a love for people that they were able to see, that have learned in the sport of rowing. And as soon as I came back from school, Alvin said, I heard that the WWE wrestling is hiring. And I was like, I'm not going to get that job. He's like, I think you should apply for it. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get that job. Apply. And so I drove down to Naperville. At that time, you could just show up and fill out an application. And there's a bunch of other people there. And these folks are like older, right? 20 years experience, 15 years experience. And I'm like, wow, like, I'm going to get this job working with The Rock and John Cena and all these people. Like, you know, I'm 21 years old. And so I tell my story in the interview. I go home and, like, I'm not going to get that job. I get a call 2 days later from this guy named Bobby. And he said, you have the job. And I asked him, how did I get the job? And he said, you were part of a sport that had no cheerleaders, no pep rallies, no busload of fans, no $1 million contracts out of college, but you showed up every day. You was able to mobilize this team. And then that Starbucks story, he's like, that is crazy. He said, because of what you did as a 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old kid is the reason why you have your dream job today. And I knew somehow through my leadership that what I do with my minutes every day determines my future. When I wake up, you're working on your wellness, that you're thinking about team, that you are just doing whatever you can to make things better, that things will always work in your favor. And these are the personal things I had to learn. And it didn't come easy. And those simple lessons were, it was very simple. My mom used to always say, you got to get rid of the mañana syndrome, right? I always said, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. Sometimes you have that painting that's crooked in your apartment, and you say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And 3 weeks later, it's still crooked. You never did it. Like, I learned to attack things that day. Today, I would do it today. I will always do it at this minute. Whenever something comes up, I'm going to do it today. I do not leave anything for tomorrow. Right? And then fear. I had a lot of fear. And that simple lesson was like, hey, just do it afraid. Being courageous means you don't have no fear. It means you're scared, and I'm going to do it anyway. When you're ready to grow to the next level of your business and it's scary, man, do it afraid. Every time you conquer a fear, life gets a lot less scary. Do it today, because your unlived life, your unlived business is waiting for you, but it's on the other side of that fear. And so you must attack those things today. Don't let the small distractions destroy your journey, right? Stay focused on what lies ahead. Every time you think about what can go wrong, you're going to end up there. My uncle taught me how to ride a bike. He used to say, stay focused on what lies ahead. And every time I looked at the bushes, I ended up in the bushes, right? I always let the small distractions destroy my journey, and I end up there, right? I always stay focused now on what lies ahead. And on this journey, there will always be distractions. And be real, some of these distractions are family members, friends, haters, people who are just trying to shoot you down because you are a target. Right? And an eagle is this strong, amazing, courageous bird that can see miles ahead, that can pick up a fox and rip it apart. An eagle has the ability to soar among the skies. But when a crow comes crowing at them, or a hawk is hawking at them, or a chicken is pecking at them, an eagle doesn't fly all the way down to say, I show you. What does it do? It elevates, rise above it. And then sooner or later, those things are nowhere to be found. So don't let the small distractions destroy your journey. Stay focused on what lies ahead. I'm going to bring me to my next point, and I'm going to open up with questions. Out of all the things I was able to accomplish and learn, the best lesson that I've learned out of all lessons is from Coach Victor, that says, Arshay, leave the boathouse better than you found it, even if you didn't make the mess. And I was like, what? Like, I'm not cleaning that boat. I didn't make the mess. Or I'm not picking it up. I didn't make the mess. He's like, if you can leave it better than you found it, even if you didn't make the mess, it makes it easier for the next group. And second of all, you benefit from the boathouse. And he would say it every day, Arshay, what? I would say, leave the boathouse better than you found it. And for me, that meant, how do I leave my classroom? How do I leave my teammates? How do I leave my family, my community? How do I leave this country better than I found it, even if I didn't make the mess? Because if I do, it makes it easier for the next generation. And we benefit from it. And so there's a responsibility to leave it better than I found it. And it was that simple. I want my life, I want my friends, I want the world to be better because I am here, right? And so where you at right now in your job and with your company, I think even if you're just passing through, we should leave it better than we found it, even if we didn't make the mess. And that's important. So I asked myself at every job I was in, if it was Le Cordon Bleu, if it was Blackbird, if it was Starbucks, that what did not exist, that need to be here, that needs to change, what is it? And because I'm here, I will fulfill that. I will leave it better than I found it. It is better now because I am here. And that's what I have done with every job, every department, every group, every team I was a part of. And if we can embrace that, oh, how great this country, our communities, our companies, our families would be if we're able to do this, regardless of what we went through. And I'm going to open it up for questions, but I would say that I hope you guys are able to learn some of those lessons that I've learned. And my favorite photo of all times, if you Google, is this turtle sitting on top of a gate. And I saw this photo and I was like, this turtle's just sitting up there, just chilling, living free, hanging out. And I said, this turtle didn't get here by itself. Somebody helped. And, for us, we are here today because somebody helped. We are living free, awesome, sometimes chilling because somebody helped. And in my community, and as we saw in this world, not only COVID hit us hard, but the division in our country. And for Chicago, that's why, I invited the cops out to row because I believe there was a responsibility, even if I didn't create the mess, to leave my city better than I found it. And, I told the guys, and they didn't think it was a great idea. But in our boat, in our neighborhoods, in order to get everyone moving in the same direction, everyone has to be pulling. And it was an amazing experience. And we are making an impact right locally on our block. And we hope that it can be better. But, you have to dare to do the things that scares you. And I hope that we are able to continue to do that and flourish and be who we ought to be. Thank you for listening, and I want to take some time for questions. I appreciate that.
I'll bring the mic around for anyone that has any questions for Arshay. So be brave if you do.
Arshay, thank you. You speak a lot of kind of what has brought you up until this point. Mike has mentioned that you've got some plans moving forward into the future and some things you have going on. And as you look at kind of the risk-taking that you made previously, where you're now at the moment, and as many of us, as we mature as business owners, we tend to be a little bit more risk-adverse because there's more stable things that we want to sustain. And so at this point, as you're moving forward, how do you manage this kind of risk mitigation of, I want to keep stable in what you have, whether it's a family situation or a financial situation, while also still being on top of, hey, I'm going to take those risks and continue to build what I started X number of years before when it was much easier to take those risks because there's really a little bit less at stake.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great question. My job is more now in impact and social change than anything else. But for example, like one of my major goals that I'm working towards right now is the Olympic Games in 2028. It's in LA. There are a lot of rowers of color, right? But still, in the 150 plus years that rowing has been an Olympic sport in our country, there's only been 5 Olympians of color out of thousands and thousands and thousands. Only one has rowed on American soil. So right now, I am working hard to make sure that those boats, those 44 athletes, reflect the diversity in our country, right? And it's going to get there. It's like I've been working on it for so long, but I think that for me, and there's a lot of risk involved in that, and but that's a whole different story. But what always helped was, and I said it a million times, is that it's the team that I have, right? That I trust. And sometimes we have a team, like I said, that are people who are available. And then we have people that are willing. Then we have people that are able. But sometimes not a lot of people who absolutely just like us get things done, right? And I have somehow made that group larger, and we all to collectively hold each other accountable, and take those risks together. But because it's such a team, and I use a lot of our lessons in rowing, that we have been able to take those risks and accomplish those risks. And I'm not saying like, hey, don't make plan Bs because of distraction plan A. Like we just stay focused on plan A. And I'm telling you, man, we work. Like that's the team I put together, right? And we think about the risk, right? But we take those risks, but our team is just so strong, and we're constantly sharpening each other. And we have a book club, and we're learning what's going on in this country, and we're watching the same documentary. So I'm not taking these risks by myself. Like when it comes to family, and I've talked about this last night with the young people, I have a calendar and a list with my family that we go through, that this is how we balance our relationship. This is how I balance my life with our kids, and we go through that. But we also do the same with our team, right? And we are focusing in on those small goals. And every time we eliminate, and we have small dreams, and every time we eliminate the small dreams, we leaving room for the next dream. So everything is just like one by one by one, right? And so that's how we're able to attack it, and that's how we're able to like really kind of make these big risks, right? And we are actually, again, putting pen to paper on some of the things that may not work out, but because the team is so strong that it's working out. We've been great. It's been good so far. But great question.
Good morning, RJ. You talk about the importance of giving away that which hurts, and you specifically say give away your treasures. Would you define a little bit more what you mean about treasure, and how does that apply to us as business owners and business leaders?
Yeah, I think that you think about Ken. Ken was a trader, and he made a lot of money. And it goes back to also what I talked about earlier with Harriet Tubman career versus her calling, or MLK career versus his calling. Time is your time to be able to work with someone. The coach job was done at 5, but he also spent 5 to 8 making sure that we were great athletes and helped us through our personal things, right? And then your talent, right? Being able to, as a person, to go volunteer. Ken, his job was really he founded this rowing team, but those entrepreneurship classes was taught by him. That was his talent that he gave every day, and he was able to see the results. And the treasure was his money, that not only I'm going to be a business, right, but we're going to give to communities, right? That we're going to be able to say, hey, school, I know there's a struggle here. I know this is missing, right? I know this school may need a trauma counselor, right? Or this school may need entrepreneurship, that we're going to pay for that. We're going to cover that. We're going to give our treasure to invest, right? And also, we're going to have paid internships, like give your treasure, and they're going to see that you gave them their first job, right? And that you're there spending time with them, right? And your talent, right? And you're giving your treasure when they can have more qualified people. But our neighborhood was a place where talent was everywhere, but access and opportunity wasn't. And that was people that understood that and saw that. And even when we wasn't qualified, I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to hire you instead of someone else because I see something in you. And that was the treasure that they gave. And we were able to go back and give to the place they gave to them. But their clientele was more diverse, and it caught the attention of communities and journalists and everyone else, and it actually helped grow their business when you give your time, talent, and treasure.
All right, one last question down here.
Thanks for the inspiring story. I liked what you talked about with your entrepreneurial spirit as a high schooler. I'm starting a high school incubator after school program in January, and just curious what advice you'd have for me of engaging the youth, getting them excited about entrepreneurship, and just how you would structure one if you did it.
Yeah, great question. I think, I would say number one, honestly, listen to them, what they want to see, what they want to do, right? We have the blueprint, but I think if we can move that organization and with their ideas, and they see it come to pass, that they would be more fired up and they'd be more willing to share. So I would spend time first investing in them as an individual, getting to know them, understanding what keeps them up at night, what keeps them going, why are they here, and who they are, and what you expected them to be, and how you plan to make sure those two meet. And so the relationships, I would say, start off with that, and then you go from there. And I think the last thing I would say, I told this story, I mentioned a little bit today, but I told the story yesterday that I was speaking in Harlem, and I asked every kid, what's your dream? What's your dream? What's your dream? And one kid said, to eat at Chipotle. And everyone started laughing. But he was so serious. He said, to eat at Chipotle. And, when I was young, there's no way I would have been able to afford Chipotle if it was around. And I gave the school counselor $20, and I said, you have to make sure he eats at Chipotle. Because if we can eliminate this small dream, there's room for bigger dreams. There's room for more dreams. And so they all going to show up with small dreams because they can't see past it, maybe. And my only dream was to go downtown. That was it. I just want to go to town. I lived in Chicago, 15 years old, 6 miles away, and I've never been downtown. And then I started rowing. I go downtown. I'm like, oh gosh, Ken, we got to go out of town, right? And we go to Wisconsin for a day. And I was like, we need an overnight trip. And we go to Philly for a week. Like, my dreams just kept getting bigger because the leadership was in the business of eliminating small dreams. And imagine that Sweet 16 bracket, right? You have all these dreams, and the mission is in the middle, what you want to accomplish. And I think when you sit with them and you start tackling those small dreams in those brackets, right, and they see it, that they're going to, before you know it, they'll be right there living in their mission. And so I think that's the way we can approach it.
Thank you so much, Arshay. Let's give him another round of applause.